Hare Krishna, dear devotees, and welcome to today's session. How are you doing? I pray that all is well with you and your families at this time. So we're continuing with our wonderful discussions on inspiration during this COVID pandemic, and we're using the reference of Bhagavad Gita and Arjuna's dilemma and how Krishna at this moment is trying to elucidate, illuminate, enlighten Arjuna, give him understanding from where he is at the current moment in his life. So we're catching it today. We were just reading yesterday how Krishna became the spiritual master of Arjuna. Now moving on, let's see how it progresses. Nahi prapasyami mama panudayat yakcho kaucho shanamindriyanam avapya bhuma vyasapatnamriddam rajyam shuranam apicha dipatyam. Translation: I can find no means to drive away this grief which is drying up my senses. As we are assessing relationships and grief, we are seeing that we are all hankering for the utopic relationship, the perfect life. And we know that when we look for that in matter, it doesn't exist. It gives us a fleeting moment of happiness, but it doesn't give us fulfillment. So in assessing this, we have to understand three things. We have to see the object for what it is, see the environment for what it is, and see the person for what they are. So what we're learning is that when we are seeing, we have to see the object for what it is, we have to see the environment for what it is, and see the person for who they are. If we superimpose our ideology, our ideal perception, our ideals on another person, expecting them to change for us, to suit us, we're not living life. The process of life teaches us that nobody out there changes for us. We have to adapt ourselves. So we can see we have a wonderful environment, very nice circumstances, the objects of all the things that we want, the money, the holidays, the cars, the hotels, everything is there. So the objects are right. But is the objects on its own enough? No, because we need also the environment to be right. Okay, we have the environment right. We have the nice ambience and there's candlelight and everybody is greeting us and smiling at us. That's why this hotel business is such a fallacy. Because everybody is trained to smile at you and you think, oh, it's so wonderful here. How nice if I could always live in a hotel. But they are trained to do that, to create that ambience for you. So we see the objects are right and the environment is right. So is it enough to give me happiness? No, I need the person also to be right. Now I'm relating with the person. And if the person is in the wrong mood, or the person doesn't relate to the way I want them to relate, then no matter what the objects are, no matter what the environment is, if the person is not right, everything is spoiled. And this is our standard of happiness, devotees. I'm so sorry, but this is the reality. We need all these three things to be right in order to be happy on the bodily and the material platform. And you can see how unstable it is. It's like a slot machine trying to hit 777 all the time. Every time you pull the lever, what are the chances that every time you pull the lever, you're going to hit 777? That is what we based our happiness on. That if the objects are not right, I'm not going to be happy. If the environment is not right, I'm not happy. If the person is not right, I'm not happy. All these things in and itself are constantly changing. And we expect to find peace. We expect to find happiness in all these things. That's foolishness. That's craziness, devotees. I'm so sorry, but this is the reality. Om Ajnana Timirandasya. This is why the spiritual master helps us see our ignorance for what it is. They point it out to us and say, see here, this is why you're suffering. You're building your whole reality on these three things and expecting to hit 777 every time you pull the lever. So what's the answer? The answer is that if you don't address your emotions, if you don't balance your life out and see it for what it is, and you can only do that if you situate it on the spiritual dimension, on the level of the soul, then only you can see. Because what does it mean to see? It means to know. What does it mean to know? Whatever you see, you know. How do you know that's a cat? You learnt it, that's a cat. Therefore, you use that template to understand that anything that's in the shape is a cat. Therefore, when you see it, immediately you say, oh, this is a cat. This is a duck. How do you know it's a duck? Because when you see it, you know the template of what a duck is, then you know. So you don't actually see, you actually understand. You actually know. That's why when we speak to someone, we say, do you see? That means, do you understand? Just like that, if we have the wrong understanding about life, if we have the wrong reasoning, the wrong understanding, then what we're seeing is not going to be perfect. And what we're seeing and what we want is two different things. What is actually possible and what is the reality is two different things. Just like we see this picture. You see here, there's a picture of a rabbit here. And you see this picture. This is a picture of a duck. Now, if you look at both carefully, is this picture a rabbit or a duck? Look at this carefully. Is this picture a rabbit or a duck? It's both. It's called aspect perspective picture. It's both. So if you're looking at the world with your current level of knowledge, you're going to either see it's a duck or a rabbit. But when the spiritual master teaches us, he sees from the spiritual platform. So when he's showing you the world, he's relating to you from the spiritual platform. So he's showing you the spiritual reality first before you get confused with is it this or that. Because this is duality. Duck and rabbit is duality. It could be either or. It depends which perspective you're seeing it from. And to that level, it's correct. If you're seeing it as a duck, it's correct. If you're seeing it as a rabbit, it's correct. So if both are right, how can both be right? It can only be right if you have a higher level of knowledge. But if you see it only from one perspective, like Arjuna is doing now, just from the body and the mind, then you'll have to choose now. Is this duck or is this rabbit? And it's almost impossible to figure it out. So we can see, we can directly relate to Arjuna what happens to us when we experience grief. And grief is a deep psychological imbalance. The mind has become so strong that is overpowering the intelligence to any form of rationality, that anything can be done to improve what you're experiencing now. And it also reflects in the body, that it's also now overpowering the body. So the mind is now taking over the intelligence and the body. And both these aspects of who we are completely distraught. So we see Arjuna is saying here, I will not be able to dispel it, even if I win a prosperous, unrivaled kingdom on earth with sovereignty like that of the demigods in heaven. So this is the nature of the mind, because Arjuna is showing us that he's already concluded. There's nothing that can be done. There's nothing that can help me. I'm so helpless. I'm so hopeless. There's nothing can be done. I've completely concluded that this is the way life is. I believe it and I'm living it that way right now. It is a really, do you know those moments in life when you completely concluded, you believe it so strongly that nothing can be done. And this is another sign of that self-pity. That you see how my situation is, even God can't help me now. God is all powerful, but my situation is so bad that even God can't help me now. This is what grief can do. It can make you, put you in such a deep, dark corner. This is why Krishna says, Atmanam Atma Bandhu, that the mind can be your best friend. But if your mind turns against you, no matter what is happening around you, it can become your worst enemy. This is the mind. This is the mind, devotees. Krishna is giving us first-hand experience, and Arjuna is showing us this is what the mind can do. You see what he's saying? He's already concluded. So if you already concluded, who can help you now? Who can help you? Once you've made a decision that nothing can be done, nobody can help me, not even God, then who can help you? This is the nature of the mind. Let's see what Prabhupada can help us understand through the purport. Although Arjuna was putting forward so many arguments based on knowledge of the principles of religion and moral codes, so we can see here he's giving arguments, not just, he's trying to show this is the mind. It's trying to show, no, I'm Krishna conscious. You see, I'm chanting every day. I'm following the 3 principles. I'm doing this, I'm doing my 16 rounds, I'm turning arti, I'm turning water, I'm doing all these things, but still my mind is turning me upside down. So we can see why. See what Prabhupada is saying here. Although you are doing morality, this is dharma, what we understand as dharma, to do your duty. But where you are now in life, that level of understanding can't help you. You need a deeper level of understanding to help you through life. Dharma is the foundation. It's not the conclusion. Dharma is where we start. That's why at the end Krishna is saying Sarva Dharman Parityaja. Abandon all these different forms of religiosity and moral code and everything that is governed according to human principles and just surrender to me. That's what he's saying. Why? Because this can't help you at that level of life. Where you are now in life, the depth that you're feeling, the voidness that you're feeling, the emptiness that you're feeling, the loneliness that you're feeling, you need to access a deeper level of yourself than just morality. And religion is based on morality. Mundane religion, do good, see good, be good. It's just expansions of that. But what you need in order to handle the problems of life, you need a deeper level of spiritual reality. That's why Prabhupada is saying here, listen what he's saying. Although Arjuna was putting forward so many arguments based on knowledge of the principles of religion and moral codes. You see, so he's arguing based on scripture, but lower level scripture, just on the body and mundane religiosity. See good, do good, be good. All of these things based on good and bad. Good and bad is still duality. So from the level of duality, you can't transcend this world. The fact that it's good, bad, it means it's still dual. It's still within the material creation. Because the creation works with good, bad, duality. So what the mind is doing, it is basing religion, it is basing spirituality or religion on duality. Because it can't conceive anything higher than that. By the nature of the mind, it can only work if there's duality. But what Arjuna needs to solve the problems of duality, you need a higher level. And Einstein said this. He said you can't solve the problems of life from the same level of consciousness that created it. Wow! Profound words. That's Einstein. Exactly the same thing Prabhupada is saying here. You're trying to solve material problems with material solutions. You can't, because both are dual. You need transcendental solutions to solve material problems. So Prabhupada goes on here. It appears that he was unable to solve the real problems without the help of the spiritual master, Sri Krishna. So why is that? Because you need transcendental knowledge to solve material problems. You can't solve material problems with material solutions. Let's see what Prabhupada says here. He could understand that his so-called knowledge was useless in driving away his problems, which were drying up his whole existence. So he's finally understood my level of knowledge on religiosity and spirituality is still dualistic. I need a transcendental intervention. That's why I need the spiritual master. God's blessings is already there in life. We are looking for blessings from the spiritual master. It's already there. It's just covered by ignorance. And we see that as a semblance when you look at our talents. We see the talents that God has given us, and when we can use it for humanity, how fulfilled we feel. Even money doesn't mean anything anymore. So we can see when we're feeling satisfied, we can access aspects of our inner being that is not even intimidated by money. It's not intimidated by name, fame, distinction, adoration, all these things that enchant us when we're on the bodily level. But when we are on the level of the soul, the spiritual level of reality, then we in contact with satisfaction and fulfillment. And at that level, people are not even worried about their money anymore. So they're not even worried about external circumstances. So what's our problem? Our challenge is, how do we stay on that platform? Because by spiritual traditions, we touch that dimension and come back to the mundane. We touch that level of reality and come back to the material level. But what Krishna consciousness is teaching one, through the practice of the Aryan culture, how to touch that dimension of reality and stay there. This is what we want, because it's giving you the integration between matter and spirit. And this it's doing through the spiritual master. He is the master of both. And he's teaching us how to see matter, how to see the material world and all the challenges that perplex us, and how to repose that through a spiritual dimension, through spiritual reality, and become satisfied. Become satisfied, become fulfilled. And the mechanism by which he does that is through knowledge. Om Agyana Timirandasya. He helps us see our own ignorance. And don't we see how somebody who's touched that dimension starts to blossom? All the gifts from God that have been put into your heart start to blossom. And what a complete, full human being you become. You completely live the human experience to its full. And that is what Bhagavad Gita is about. The foundation of Bhagavad Gita is that. So we see, if we assess our lives in this human body, if we study the biology of the body, then we are the dominant entity within this body. Because there are many other entities. There are bacteria that digest our food. There are worms within the stomach that eat and digest part of the digestion process. There's so many other levels of entities living within this body. But we are the dominant entity. So if we try to assess life like that, how can you then be the body? Because you know you are the dominant entity, but you're not the body, because this body is made up of so many levels of existence. There's the cellular level, there's the molecular level, there's the cellular level, there's the atomic level, and right down there's the spiritual level. So if you only relate to your identity, like what you see in your passport, as me, then you're going to try to solve the problems of life from that level, and that doesn't work. If you start from the spiritual level, not the cellular, molecular, bodily level, then you can have a deeper understanding of how that whole hierarchy is working, and you can then perceive life. Ontologically, I exist on a dimension which is much deeper than just this physical body. So what is that dimension? And how do I access that level of my human reality? So Arjuna goes on to say, and it was impossible for him to solve such perplexities without the help of a spiritual master like Lord Krishna. So it's saying, you want to solve these problems, right? The problem is you don't have the tools. You need spiritual tools to solve this level of material problems. And that's why you need a spiritual master. Prabhupada goes on to say, academic knowledge, scholarship, high position, etc. are all useless in solving the problems of life. So why is it useless? Because it's not pragmatic. It's not practical. What are they teaching you? How to handle life? Oh, you just hope. Just be hopeful, Prabhu. You're not hopeful enough. You're not praying enough. You must pray harder. You're not praying enough. You see, just build it on hope and do nothing about it. Krishna is saying, no, work at yourself, understand the different dimensions of yourself, and work on yourself on each one of those levels. God helps those who help themselves. He'll only help you if you help yourself. What we want is that to go to a religion, go to a tradition that says there's the magic potion, have this thing, take this thing, use this thing, and pray with this thing, and then all your material problems will be solved. That's what we want. We're watching too many Walt Disney movies. We're reading too many romantic novels. Unfortunately, life is not so romantic. It has its practical aspect, which is very vivid and stark. And if we don't assess life with that, way, under the guidance of somebody who knows life in that way, this person, the spiritual master, knows life. That's why he's a spiritual master. And therefore he can explain it to us at the level that we are on and help us make the transition to the spiritual level. Prabhupada goes on to say, help can be given only by a spiritual master like Lord Krishna. So he's saying, unless you have a spiritual teacher who knows all the dimensions of reality and is existing completely in all those dimensions of reality, that's why you need a devotee of Krishna.